Recording live from the Northeast Georgia Business RadioX studio, this is Northeast Georgia Business Radio presented by Regions Bank. Start building your financial confidence at Regions Bank. Member FDIC, an equal housing member. Welcome back, folks, to another exciting edition of Northeast Georgia Business Radio. I'm your host, Tom Sheldon. And yeah, we're coming to you live from the beautiful Empower College and Career Center of Jackson County. I have with me a special guest. I'm looking forward to this. She kind of lives in my world. She lives a lot in my world, quite honestly. I have with me today Leslie Gordon. Leslie, welcome to the Northeast studio.
Thank you, Tom. So happy to be here.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm cold. It's cold today.
I know. I'm ready to get back in the truck and go home. I'm looking forward to the interview, but it's like 26 degrees outside.
Yeah, that's abnormal for us.
Yeah, we're Southerners. We don't do this.
We don't do cold.
Nor should we. If I wanted this, I'd move to, never mind. You are a speech coach.
Indeed.
You do a lot of talking, and you teach people how to talk.
That's right.
So important.
That's right. Speaking as a universal skill can be used for so much in life, and I help people to pull that skill out of themselves because everyone has it.
Oh, yeah, it's in there.
It's in there.
You need to find it, know how to use it. I have 1,000,001 questions. I don't know. All the questions are going to come flying out at once, I'm afraid.
I'll do my best to catch them.
Oh, good luck with that. Good. Speech coach. When I think of that, I think of someone who is trying to better themselves. Maybe they have a impediment of some type, a dialect that maybe doesn't fit where they're at or what they need. Am I going down a rabbit hole on this?
No. In fact, you've said a lot in just one statement. So we can unpack just that one statement.
Cool.
You touched on having an impediment. So let's take that piece first. There are professionals who work with speakers who have an impediment, or maybe they lack a certain sound, or they have physical incapacity that inhibits their speaking. Those are speech pathologists or speech language pathologists.
Gotcha. More like therapists.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
And I did half a degree program in that years ago. It was a little more clinical than I was looking for, and I went another direction, but that's fantastic, very meaningful work. When I do get questions about that sort of work, I just refer out, principally because that's more clinical in nature. It happens in schools and clinics and hospitals, and there's a very specific type of certification that's needed for that, and that's not what I do.
Gotcha.
Common toolkit, however, a lot of the same tools might be used between me and my work and those professionals and their work.
So now, what is a sweet spot? Who do you work with? People mastering what they already do? That was a horrible statement.
That's part of it. No, I can untangle that. That's part of it. And you mentioned it also in your initial statement. People who feel they are not where they need to be in terms of speaking, or that their speech, and this, you were saying something like this, I'm going to paint maybe a different picture, but people who feel that their speaking does not represent them.
Okay.
So that might be because they are the master of knowledge and skill and talent and what have you in their profession or their industry, but their speaking skills aren't, let's just say, leveled up enough that they can accurately represent that knowledge and that skill when they're out in the public talking about it. You also touched on the accent piece. That's really my technical expertise. That's the crux of my training in languages and accents, acquisition and modification and that type of thing. That is an area where I do often see people who feel that they're living in some in-between space. They have one, because language and accent are very tied to identity. And so if you're not fully confident in the way you sound, and sometimes that's because of an accent, it can inhibit you when you're expressing yourself out in the public. And so I get a fair amount of clients who do come to me for what is often called accent modification. I call it accent enhancement. I do not like to call it accent reduction. That term has been out in the space for a long time, and I don't use reductive approaches when I do the work.
I'm with you on that. I've run across people who have suffered with that, and voice coaches have actually made things worse. Having a very thick accent and trying to get rid of that accent.
You can overreach.
And I've seen that.
Yes.
I've personally seen it. No, I mean, not me personally. I've worked with people who have done that, have suffered through that.
Yes, and you do the wrong work, or you overreach, or you move toward the wrong target, and then you'll find yourself years later trying to undo that work.
Yeah, You kind of don't know who you are anymore.
That's right.
You're just spinning around.
It's that close connection between the way we speak and how we identify.
Isn't that crazy?
It's
I've
crazy,
seen that.
but it's beautiful. It's
Oh,
fascinating.
it is.
Yeah.
Someone told me when I first started in voice, it's as much mental as your actual physical voice. And they were so right.
Completely. I know we'll talk about that some today, but I do believe in that intersection of mind, body, and speech. They all come together.
So how'd you get into all this? Now, you have degrees. You've studied this.
I've got some fancy pants degrees, yes.
I hear you.
I have studied it for an obnoxiously long amount of time, but I was also the little kid that was just fascinated with the way people speak. I was fortunate to have an early exposure to another language. We moved with my father's job. This is one of the stories I tell in one of my keynote talks. We moved from our native state to a state in another part of the country, and I was exposed to different accents, an entirely different language, and I was just so curious about what I was hearing and trying to make sense of what I was hearing and assigning, in my child mind, assigning personalities to different sounds. And I think I've spent my life just continuing with that curiosity and finding systems that explain it, and then ultimately doing work that helps people who are navigating their speech in some way.
How many languages do you speak?
I always get that question. So I give it a different answer every time. Today I'm going to say 36.
36.
No, I speak...
Now she's bragging, folks.
No, so far from the truth. I speak 2 languages comfortably, English and Spanish. I'm native level Spanish. And I speak pretty darn good Portuguese as well. I don't use it as often, so it needs a little polishing up. And then I know a smattering of other languages. I'm good enough to be dangerous and,
Wow.
pass as conversational and then maybe get myself in trouble.
That works. You work with someone who's learning a dialect. That is possible.
It is possible.
How long does that take? I guess it's up to the individual.
It is up to the individual and the reason that it needs to be learned. So let's take the average individual that needs to shift an accent or a dialect. And by the way, we can go down that rabbit hole if you want, the difference between accent and dialect.
You know I do, yeah.
I'll come back to that. So if it's for everyday use and long-term adoption, it can take weeks or months.
Okay.
And that depends on a lot of things. It depends on the degree of motivation, the frequency of the work, how much the person puts into practicing it between sessions, like learning a lot of other skills. Mm-hmm. But the things that are for long-term adoption do take longer. If it's an actor or a performer or a voiceover artist, it needs to be done in a shorter amount of time because the job is there.
Yeah, you're contracted.
Waiting.
They're not giving you months to do it.
That's right. That's a luxury in the dialect coaching world to have weeks or months to work with an actor on an accent. But that's very focused work. But it's also work that it's centered around a script. So the communication is finite. So you know what you're working with. So
True.
You get in quickly, you work deep from the start, and you build up this accent around that character and around the script and what needs to be done, which is very specific. So it can vary. Now, in terms of the difference between accent and dialect, accent is strictly about the sounds. So the postures, the pronunciation, the rhythm, that type of thing, just literally how a language or a variation of a language sounds. Dialect can comprise vocabulary, grammar, other elements of style. So it's a bit broader. So when you say dialect, you might be talking about the way different speakers of English do or don't conjugate certain verbs, just for example, top of my head. And dialect can be, it's another interesting tiny rabbit hole, can be negatively perceived. That term can be tricky for some people because dialect has been used, the term has been used in a pejorative sense in certain contexts by certain people for a very long time. To say someone has a dialect might be conveyed in a pejorative sense.
Yeah.
And
I can see that. I've probably suffered from that before, to be honest with you. Not that I care.
Many of us probably have. Someone pointing a finger saying that dialect signals inferiority, lack of education, have you.
Where they come from sometimes.
Where you come from.
There can be a bias associated
with that. It's an othering mechanism.
Yeah.
And so I'm careful to try to define the two. For me, as a linguist, a dialect is what it is. It's what I've just defined without that additional burden. But for some people, that's a tricky word.
someone has to suddenly move into an area and they have to run a warehouse or they're over a large group of people, do they need to be changing how they sound or how they're saying things? Someone moves, and I've seen this, we've all seen this, I'll call it what it is. Someone moving from the northern Midwest, they come down and they're over 1,000 people right here in Jackson County. There's going to be pushback.
Sure. They're immediately seen as an outsider.
And technically they are. And it's the way they sound.
Sure.
And it's about 99.9% of it.
Sure.
Is someone in that position, do they want to maybe spend some time with you and learn how them folks are talking? Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and that's a great client. I think that work would begin with just deciding what that relationship needs to be and what role the voice plays in it. Because yes, that's something noticeable about you. And yes, there are going to be people who see you immediately as an outsider because you sound different and they're going to make certain associations about you. But through relationship building and other mechanisms, that can become less of an issue.
True.
However, if the person chooses, they can make adjustments to, I'd say, approximate the accent of the area. If they don't want to adopt it fully, that's fine. That might not be a reasonable goal. In fact, I would say in a lot of cases, it's not.
Probably not.
But learning to navigate that, the two accents in the same space and what that difference means and how it can be smoothed over, sure, that's work worth doing.
I could see it be well worth it, but so you have to tailor. This is a silly question. You have to tailor what your program. Everybody's different.
Everyone is different.
Everyone's different. So just figuring that out on your end, that's got to be half the battle. Probably more than half the battle.
Well, it's the very first step, to be
gotta
honest.
be. Yeah.
It's especially with private client coaching, there's the initial call to determine if there's a fit for the work, and then the very next call is what I call a strategy call, and I ask specific questions. I send a short little questionnaire, and when I get those answers back, I'll sit down with a person and I pull threads, and it becomes a much larger conversation than they know is coming. And we get to these important questions of, why do you want to do this work? How do you feel about the way you sound? Where would you like to go, and what will it mean to you to get there? And then I determine, based on that information, the degrees of work that I need to do in the 3 core elements that I always use for this work: mindset, body and breath energy, and then discrete speaking skills. And it's a different cocktail, just like you said. It's a different mix. It's a different recipe for every client when it's private client work, and that's deep work.
Oh yeah.
For a bigger group, or for more first level work, we might not go that deep, and I know what the universals are, and I can work with a group to get them to a common place. But private client coaching is definitely something special.
They're coming to you to solve a problem.
That's right.
Real or perceived, in their mind, it's there.
That's right.
Leslie, we're going to take a quick break, get in a community partner. Folks, we will be right back. One of our great community partners is the Green Insurance Group. Everyone has different insurance needs. Call Nick and his team today for a personalized assessment and find out how they can help protect you and your hard-earned assets. With years of insurance experience helping clients prepare for the unknown, they can help with a personalized business or individual assessment that can save money now and headaches later. Home, auto, fire, commercial, life, and much more. Visit greeninsurancegroup.net for all the details. That's green with an E, insurancegroup.net for all your insurance needs. And while you're at it, visit our new website, negabrx.com, to see all our great community partners. Leslie, you still there?
Still here.
Good deal. Good deal. What were we talking about? We were talking about being a speech coach. Talking.
We were talking about talking.
You're really good at it. Something you mentioned, you did mention some one-on-one coaching.
Yes.
Working with someone directly. But you also, you teased it a little bit, workshops.
Yes.
I imagine you standing up in front of a room of people.
In front of a room and in and among the people.
Among the people.
Yes.
Interactive kind of thing.
Absolutely. Workshops, seminars, half day, full day, multiple day, like a serial kind of training. Those are really fun events because speaking is a social activity.
Yes.
So when it can be learned, when these skills can be enhanced in the company of others who are having the same challenges, might be having the same fears and self-doubts, that you can see it happening. It's a beautiful thing. The participants become coaches to each other at some point. There's a magical transition point in the workshop. It's after the initial nerves have worn off in the morning and we've done some things and we've made some discoveries and everyone's leaning in and realizing, yes, this is useful and I'm going to leave here with something good today. And then they become coaches and cheerleaders for each other. And then I'm just moving around helping facilitate the process. But I basically, just to give a quick snapshot, take them through the elements I mentioned earlier. What is the mindset around connected, authentic speaking? What's happening in your body when you are present and connecting well? And then what are those discrete speaking skills that everyone thinks of, like speaking rate and clarity and things like that? How do those layer on to the mindset and the bodily energy? And then how do we bring it all together? And it always ends, the events always end with some on-the-spot coaching, with some brave souls that are willing to get up in front of the room, run a text, have me coach, and then they're cheering like mad for each other. Nice. It's a great event.
Do you think just finally that level of confidence just hits?
Yes, it's so nice to see.
And they're bought into it.
Yeah, they just come out and they look my way and they smile. And very often I get a comment such as, that was actually fun for a minute. And so when you get a taste of what speaking should be, that it's that bridge and it's a way to connect with another human being, that's the taste that encourages someone to keep working and to show up again and try it again.
That will eventually blur into public speaking.
Yes, because public speaking is just another conversation.
Yeah.
It terrifies a lot of people, but it is another conversation. It's just a different human dynamic. It's one on many. I think the fear point for so many people is that performance-based, what they perceive to be a performance. I have to get up. I have to perform. Everything has to be right. I can't mess up.
I've been there before.
We all have.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is about you in that moment rather than the connection in the room. Mm-hmm. And when you can, again, make that transition in your mind and then make it with your body and your speaking, that you're just making connections. It just happens to be maybe 50 people instead of 5.
Right.
Then, it's by degree and rather than a completely different act.
I always found if I didn't take myself too seriously,
that helps.
The results were always so much better.
Yes, because we're all in that space, right? We all easily self-criticize, but we're also all, and this is another thing I like to remind people of, the people out there listening, they're there for you.
Yeah, they're
cheering
on your
for
side.
you.
They're really on your side.
They are.
Yeah, especially if they know you.
Exactly. They're holding you.
We're all friends here.
That's right.
Well, almost all friends, but still, exactly. They're on your side. There's no reason not to be able to stand up in front of 40, 50 people, especially when they know you.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, I've stood up in front of hundreds, if probably not in the low thousands of people who I have no idea who those folks were at film festivals and things like that, hosting those from stage. Mm-hmm. That can be a little intimidating.
It can, although I find that it's one or the other with people that I work with. And this is true for me as well. I'd rather be in a room full of people I don't know.
Really?
I would.
Really? See, I'm the exact. Technically, I don't care. I don't.
Either way,
wind me up, let me go. I'll get through it. But I love being in front of people I know.
It's something that's grown with me. I enjoy it more than I used to. But I remember when I was a grad student doing my first conferences, and it was often the case that several of us in the department would apply to the same conference, and we would all go with our research and ready with our presentations. And I would threaten my classmates with death if they came to my presentation. I would tell them, please stay away. I'd rather be in a group I don't know, because those are the people that you love and you care about and their impressions are important to you. That's high stakes.
That is high stakes.
And so for some people, they'll say the same. It's okay if I don't know them. It's better that way. I can just do my thing and get out of there. And I can work with that. But I can also work with the other scenario. I want to be in a room where I know those people are looking back at me with kind eyes and I can immediately feel a connection and I don't have to work for it. We can work with that too. Both are valid human emotions and human reactions to a moment. And that's where the work begins. How are you experiencing this? And how do you begin to take control of the mental and physical experience rather than have it control you?
No, I'm totally with you on that. Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me is I like to hear or even see hear, see, sometimes can be the same thing. A response.
Yes.
A smile, the crowd smiling. When I'm in a big auditorium or amphitheater, there's hundreds, if not thousands, around me. Odds are I can't see 90% of the people because of the darkness.
Lights, right.
Exactly. Once in a while, you're thinking, do they even hear what I'm saying? Am I bombing? Wow, am I that bad at this? At least when a smaller group, and I know them, I can read the room. I can see.
Yes.
If everyone's on their phones, I know I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
But now, again, a small group in person, I love to make everyone a part of it. Oh, hey, Leslie, I didn't see you come in. Hey, Leslie, she's up here. Wave to everybody. And if you have a select few people you can do that with, they know it's coming.
Anchors.
Yeah, they know it's
Your anchors
coming.
in the room, right.
It just draws everybody into what you're doing.
Right. Well, you said the magic word. It's engagement.
Yeah.
And so if you are in a situation, and I'll get to this point with a lot of my clients or my groups, comes a little bit later in the process, but when you are in those circumstances where you have to speak to a group or even just a boardroom scenario and you feel like there is no engagement, it's great to have some audience engagement tools in your pocket that you can go to. The more you use them, the more you know what they are and how they work. Yep. And so those are some things that we work on. So if it's a speaker I'm training to do a presentation from stage, we start putting those in as we are working on the script and as we're working on vocal elements so that they all go together. They know when they raise their pitch in a certain place that means they're going to raise their hand at the same time. We marry these things together. For more conversational moments, there are engagement techniques, just good old conversational turn-taking elements. So like you suggested, hey, so-and-so just walked in. How are you? Let's let her get her seat. It really is about being in the moment more than anything.
You live in that moment.
Live in the moment.
A voice follows the body.
That's right.
It truly does. Mm-hmm. We're talking way too much about my stuff, though.
No,
we need more about what you
stuff.
do. It is our stuff. I love this. This is awesome. I've looked so forward to having you in. Other than staring at people or people staring at their phones, which personally I think the ability to communicate and talk is becoming a lost art.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that, honestly, it worries me. Other than that, what are challenges that you constantly see? I wonder, curiosity, do people just not take communicating seriously? Do you run across that? That's just flying out of my mind. Do people just not take it seriously?
I think that it's become, I do think it's still taken seriously, and I tell you why I say that. I still get feedback just out there when people learn what I do.
Yeah.
A very common remark I will get is, oh, I need to be better at that. Or, gosh, my generation's not any good at that. Or something like that. So there's a recognition that it's still a skill that's worthy of having. I do think it is not emphasized, that developing the skill is not emphasized as much as it could be because everything we consume is coming at us. It's not an interaction like it used to be.
True.
And I think that's what's being lost. We consume by watching, by listening, by quick texts, anything but measured, careful, connected conversation that's well thought out and intentional. And that's often the beginning place with any group or client that I work with is, what is the intention around your communication? How are you trying to affect the other person? And we don't take time to think about that anymore because everything else moves so fast.
Right.
And also because speaking is quote unquote easy, we can do it. So therefore we don't really think about doing it.
Yeah. Now, you've been doing this a little while. She started when she was like 4, folks.
About that.
I got to believe, in fact, actually, I know a gentleman you worked with. We won't name his name because we don't want to give him the big head. But you did help him, and anyone who could help him. You may not be human at this point.
Great. I've got to find out later.
Oh, you know who it is. You know who it is. Give me some success stories. I know you got some. This is truly your time to brag.
Yes, I do. And I love my success stories, and I love them because I love the people behind them and what I've seen that they grow into. One I like to tell is a researcher that I worked with last year, someone who came to me brilliant in her work. I could listen to her talk about it and read about it for hours. She had a real deep anxiety around speaking, associated with some other just social anxieties. And I could see when we first talked, it was a real burden. She had been carrying this for a long time, but she, like a lot of other clients, was in a place where she was moving forward, and her company and her colleagues knew her talent and they wanted her to move forward. They wanted her to be the voice for some projects, and she could do it because she had the knowledge and the talent, but she was terrified. And so her case was one of just not enjoying it, and that fear just affected the way she communicated. And so we worked deeply on breath work and on mindset around speaking. We worked on finding her value in a speaking moment and what value she brought to those who heard her. And the really beautiful moment that I like to tell was we were working specifically on some little bit of text we were just playing with, and some of her own, something she would deliver in a meeting. And I was asking her, as part of the process of opening the body and freeing the breath and being more present, I was asking her to go to a place that was free and easy and almost lazy. And she stopped and she looked at me and said, but this isn't professional. I can't be easy and be professional. And it was such a light bulb moment for her to say that out loud, and for me to realize that many people put off this work because they're afraid it's going to alter that professional alter ego that they've created.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's really like what we've been saying here before. It means oftentimes a shift in identity, but it's a good shift, because in her case, when she got over that hump and realized being free and open to communicate actually empowers you to do more.
Absolutely.
Then you can work on the style and the precision and the speed and all of those other things, but it all needs to come from a place of openness and freedom, and then we just work on the details.
Exactly.
And she, after that point, she really made pretty rapid progress and told me that she was getting more invitations for more presentations and feeling better about those moments, and that was key. So that was a really big win for her that I was really excited to see.
Do you come across people that perhaps lose opportunities, even promotions?
Oh, yes.
Because, by the way, you're going to have to present in front of 1,000 people.
I actually just wrote in my subscriber email list today, I was sharing a story of a client I've worked with in the recent past who told me up front it had taken her longer to get to her current position, which is a high-level position in a big university, because for so long she put off speaking opportunities.
Wow.
She had some hack, some excuse not to do it every time, and so she stayed put for a long time until she realized she had to do it, then started suffering through it, then came to me because she realized these opportunities are here to stay. I'm going to have more. I've got to stop suffering. And so, yes, people will stay put rather than progress because they know that speaking is involved.
How about
It's
that?
a sad thing to see.
And it's one of the easiest things we do.
One of the easiest skills to learn.
Leslie, I know we've got a website.
We have a website, lesliegordonspeech.com.
lesliegordonspeech.com. You're active on social media.
On Instagram, the same, Leslie Gordon Speech, Facebook as well. And I have a list. I send out a couple of emails a week with tips and strategies, and that's also where I promote free courses and paid courses, and you can find out about coaching opportunities. You can just contact me with the contact tab on my website. That's the fastest way to get to me.
What is your, of course, I know you do things virtual, right?
Yes.
But what is your footprint where you physically will travel to?
Oh, I can travel anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, love it.
I got you. Good deal. Well, Leslie, if we got it in,
Awesome.
I could sit here and talk with you for hours about this.
I'm envisioning future episodes. I think we've got them carved out.
Nice. I'm up for it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. They're going to play music. You know how those producer types are. And then I got to wrap up.
It's been great. Thank you.
Leslie, thank you. Folks, lesliegordonspeech.com. Hey, if you are someone who perceives to network a lot, even if it's at a weekly networking meeting, and you've got to talk in front of a bunch of people, you may need to check Leslie out. lesliegordonspeech.com. I'm Tom Sheldon. We'll talk to you soon.